seeking mind is a Dwaparayuga state of mind. Dva, dual, two. This state of mind is vibrating at a frequency experiencing itself, its nature, as I am duality. The pure consciousness that which we are. We really cannot speak or say anything about it because our pure nature, and this is really the funny part because it is what we are, right? But our pure nature has no qualities, no attributes. It's imperceptible, right? It's unknown. That's why we use words like darkness, unknown. It's like the seed that we call as Shiva, unmanifest potentiality. And in order to experience itself, it becomes the mind. This becoming is simply an appearance, like the water that experiences itself as a ripple, a drop, rapids, waterfall, the ocean, all of it, but nothing changes the water itself. Pure consciousness becomes the mind, appears as the one mind, which we call as Shakti. So that's why Shiva Shakti is one and the same, like two sides, right, of the same coin. One which doesn't have any attributes at all, so we really cannot speak about that which we are directly. And as the mind, the formless, experiencing forms, Shakti as one mind vibrates, shimmers as infinite minds, experiencing itself as unique flavors, subjective awareness. Mind is awareness, the ability to be aware. Shiva as the mind is aware. Shakti, that's why, is Shiva's living possibilities. Shakti is Shiva's loving, Shiva's relating, perceiving, experiencing, dreaming. That's why at the level of Shakti's realm, in form, which is Shiva itself, we say Shakti is infinite dreams, worlds, stories, ideas, illusions. Different words for the same thing. In relationship to that which is our pure nature. That is true reality. That appearance of the mind and its play, infinite plays. That's why the seers, the mystics, the sages, the yogis all mentioned pointing it as illusion. The reality that we at the level of mind, at the level of form, believe to only be the true reality is not what it seems to be. And this was never really mentioned in order to negate or invalidate the reality that is lived at the relative level. It was only in response to the questioning, doubting, struggling, suffering, overthinking seeker who arrived with this question, naturally identified with only its relative identity at the level of form. Shakti, one mind, limits itself, playing at different ratios of unconscious and conscious. And this dynamic nature, it's like a playground. that which it is determines what it perceives, how it relates, the conditioning of it, the coloring of it, and what it experiences and what it expresses. Every mind, that's why a self-sustaining, experiential playground. We only see in this context that which we are. As one mind, and of course we cannot say anything about that which is our true reality, right? Because anything we say about it will be bringing the formless into form. And bringing it into form and saying anything about it is ultimately simply a pointer. And any truths that are uttered, that's why, are subjective truths. Unique perspectives to the one unnameable truth, that which we are. And just like Shiva, pure consciousness that cannot experience or express or do anything, right? Karma, do anything or know anything without appearing to become the mind. This dynamic, which seems paradoxical, right? So that's why the importance to really hold this, because it is I am and whatever we add after that at the relative level. Holding these two, otherwise without that just identified at the relative level or other side, is what causes the conundrum and confusion. This one mind Shakti, so there are three levels, one may say, right? And just see this as a story, because again, in form, these are all pointers. They'll never be accurate. And that's why actually first and foremost is the invitation always, the state of being, the state, the level of awareness of the mind. That is everything that determines what will be perceived, interpreted, understood, experienced. That's why for every video the invitation is first for us to step into it by doing the body centering presence practice that allows us to step into anything that we do with an beginner state of mind, Zen mind, open listening space from the deepest part of ourselves, so we can then sense, we can resonate with what is true for us. Again, as I mentioned, everything is a unique ratio of what is unconscious and conscious. As long as we are looking outside to know that everything is evolving uniquely and is at a different stage of its evolution. When we come from our deepest self, we can discern for ourselves intuitively what rings true for us and what does not. As Shakti, whatever is valid. Such is her liberated power. Each mind dancing its own nature. So we get to determine for ourselves. And the deeper space that we come from, the deeper our sensing. So that's the invitation. I'm going to put a link below for the presence practice. It's a long video where I've explained the importance of, coming from this. This is an essential practice. But the first 10 minutes is what the practice is. If you can just do that. Now, in case you don't have the time or you're amidst, you're driving and doing this, whatever, that's fine. If you can even pause, just pause. Take a deep breath. And step into this with that aware space. Sensing into what is arising in the field. As consciousness, we are, what one may say, is timeless. So whatever arises in the field, whatever is here, is timeless in nature. And of course, one of the most key things, that's why, is to always kind of hold, even if conceptually, this fact that that which is our true nature already is consciousness and is per se everything. We cannot say anything about it, and that's why we refer to this more as the non-dual state. Because even to say oneness wouldn't really be accurate. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's one or whatever. But in relation to our experience as duality, we can say the true reality that we are is non-dual. So first is, of course, pure consciousness, about which we really cannot say anything. The one mind manifested that we can really say something about, because that is what which we are, is awareness. Right? The knowing aspect, right? Awareness. This awareness simply is. And its nature experiences, the way that it vibrates, experiences different states of time, space. What is a seeker or a seeking mind? So this stream of consciousness, when we see this one mind that experiences itself as infinite in infinite ways, in this experience, one of which is actually just a teeny tiny part, is the experience of the human consciousness. And the way that it vibrates. And as the third density experience that we are having right now, third density body-mind world, it is a play of this personal I thought. The way that it vibrates is such that the awareness that it is limits itself. Right? The unlimited has to limit itself in some ways to experience its own nature in infinite ways. In this case, it limits itself, its own awareness. That's why we call it veiling its own nature, in a way that that awareness is at the gross level, all relatively speaking, at the gross level as the five senses. Shakti is sensing. So the five senses and the mind are one and the same. It points to the way that it is vibrating at whichever frequency. So as the five sensory mind that we are identified with, whatever I see, whatever I smell, whatever I taste, whatever I touch, whatever I hear, is what makes my reality. But forgetting our true nature, identified only as this one state that is vibrating, which is a relative identity, secondary identity, and identified, all of this, that's what makes it so real, right? It's the senses that's vibrating, the awareness is less, so that's why we experience as if being aware from inside the body, through the body. So it's so natural for us to believe that of course I'm the body, or that awareness lives in me, while the body lives in awareness, and so does the world. The experience of time, space, all of that, whatever is happening, happens in consciousness. That is our true nature. But as this limited experience, to have this and for it to feel real, awareness as such, that limitation happens. The unlimited has to limit itself. Now, identified with this body, it's like I'm seeing from the body, feeling through the body. We think the body feels. That's our narrative. identified as the matter, and of course as the condition that this is the I, thinking mind. That's the psychological aspect of the separate self. I find myself naturally to be separate. The minute this separate I self concretizes itself, becomes an identity, naturally, life that is seamless as the one mind, that is awareness, every moment a fresh arising, seamless. Now, simply an appearance for this play, for the third density play, right? For this play gets fragmented as if a scissor cutting through the seamless thing, standing as the I with an inner world. Naturally, simultaneously arises the outer world. Both are the same. So we fragment ourselves to have this experience as a personal I, separate self, living in a world without realizing the world is our own face. And while it is simultaneous, the core, the center is the self. Because the self, the seeing, determines what is reflected back. The conditions of the being is what is reflected back as the world. This is the play, this is the Rasa Leela. And that is why the invitation, right? Because the seeker, what is a seeker? A seeker is one who, as we know, and of course we all uniquely arrive to it. So really important for us to sense into that for ourselves. But a seeking mind is the mind that naturally now identified as this limited body and having this experience, and now is facing certain questions that no more can be answered by the identity that it has lived as the intellectual, logical, reasoning mind. It cannot answer this. This known mind that we are identified with, see its nature. What it really knows at one level truly is only what it knows from the world. Its knowing is only that of its world. So the intellect is an amazing tool for the play in the world, but not to know what is life. This mind, that this identification with the body, matter, this vibrating mind has a particular flavor of experience. So this mind is, that's why it's the dual mind, taking a stance as the self and an outer world. It lives an outside-in dynamics, separate from itself. That's it. It attains knowledge. It gains knowledge. That is how it experiences. And it plays in duality, this or that. Because it, as a static, that's why I kind of sense this mind as a pause button. Identified as matter, as form, it experiences what its nature is exactly what it's experiencing. That's why we always say it's at the relative level, no experience, no perception, nothing is outside of us. Like the water that ripples, it is rippling water, but at the relative level, right? So no perception, no experience is outside of us, because the seer and the seen are really the thing. All that is actually happening is the seeing. This thing that I am the seer, and therefore this is what is seen, is the dynamic set up by this conceptual mind. This mind that is identified as form, a pause button almost, sees itself like a body, right? As if static. Naturally, its world is also that way. We relate to people as person, as body. We see things as objects. We don't see or sense the subtler aspects of it. We, as matter, we live in a material world. And this is the core of the Dwaparayuga experience. Core. the experience of physicality, tangible. The five sensory mind is a masculine dominant energetic mind. Consciousness that flows is one stream, but plays as the feminine and the masculine. Feminine is the subtle, the hidden, the unseen. She is the source for which that gets transformed as the masculine. The subtle desires, inspiration, intentions, the way of our seeing that we don't realize, subtle, is what manifests as if in the outer world, as if real, as matter, as masculine. When we are identified completely only with our masculine senses as five senses, we naturally live the dynamics of the masculine world, thinking that is only reality, fragmenting ourselves from our feminine self. This is all simply an experience without which we cannot have or taste this way of being, right? Shakti is Shiva's living, Shakti is Shiva's loving, Shakti is Shiva's tasting, sensing. So this is one way that is one flavor, that's a unique experience. So Shakti and Shiva are the two aspects of that the seeing, the nature of the self reverberates as the mind, the mirror effect. And that is why, first and foremost, always the invitation to depersonalize, not in a way to negate the experience, but by depersonalizing, we create that space and we're able to see the mechanism of reality. That gives us a little space to see, otherwise we are one with it, identified with what we are vibrating as, thinking that is only true. This is the seeker's experience as the five sensory mind, as a concept, limiting ourselves. Naturally, for the seeker, it all begins with naturally at the very, very subtle level, where we start seeking because we are questioning, we are doubting, and then it deepens and we finally arrive at some level to see what is the nature of life, or there is more to life. Synonymously, say like there is more to me. A seeking mind or a seeker is not just a Dwaparayuga state of mind. And that's why it's exciting to know that a seeker's mind is a awakening, transforming, rising, ripening, blossoming, overflowing state of mind. Life is ever evolving and expanding. As the conceptual I, this hardened concept of an idea that this is what I am, and living as that intellectually, we become our own barrier for our expansion. And that's why we feel the angst and the limitation, as life that which we are is moving, is expanding. This is the seeker's experience. And it's a natural experience. Of course, each state of mind experiences this uniquely on different subjects, different topics, in different ways. The nature of consciousness has an ebb and flow to it, flows in a certain way at the core level. As human consciousness, we know that the first, when we step into this experience, the mind is vibrating in Kali Yuga. I'm going to go ahead and put the link for Kali Yuga, the video that I've created as well. So, and there are other videos that might set the foundation, the context in which we are speaking. Go ahead and take a look at that. But when we come into Kali Yuga, as mentioned in that, the aware aspect of us, right? This unique ratio of conscious and unconscious. The aware aspect of that is very, very less. And that's why we are floating on the top as the wave with our emotions, which is the world, our conditioning moves that way as the wave, we move that way. If the world moves this way, we move this way. That is the experience. Absolutely living as a condition, as the world. And then we awaken to the Dwaparayuga state of mind. This is awakening, becoming more aware, but still at the level of the person and the world outside. So that's why it's not a paradigm shift. We are going through a paradigm shift right now. So this is where we are awakening, but still at the level as a person. This Dwaparayuga mind suddenly realizes, I am aware as a person. I can make choices. I can make decisions for myself. And the experience that we've been steeped in, right, has been that. As an aware at the personal level, as the body, but aware, self-aware. The awareness of the mind, which is not the same as the true self-awareness. But at the level of the mind, it's still colored, right, by the conditioning, but at the same time, it is at the level of the person. And that relating and dance of it is the dance of Dwaparayuga. What are my, values? It relating now as a person, creating relationships, creating the world, businesses, education, civilized world that we see, all a reflection of the self. The world is a reflection, one and the same, the self and the world. That is the Dwaparayuga state of mind, awakening into that. Now I won't go much into that, but I'll do that in the next video. Why? Again, because the mind, the seeking mind as a person that is questioning, that does not realize that it's its own nature, its own identity, which is simply an illusion that it stands as, desiring to know and understand life, is that which needs to dissolve. When it surrenders, the true reality is there, already present. It's not something we need to do to gain. This awakening and so-called different words, right? These are simply words each of us imbue it with meaning. Self-realization, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, waking up to our truer self, to put it in the simplest terms. Right? This is not something that we need to attain. It's not something we're going to become. The Dwaparayuga state of mind that lives outside in, right? Kali Yuga, the experience of this, that's why third density, disempowered self. Like it has no power, it's living in the world. Coming into Dwaparayuga is the self-empowerment, but it's the self with a small s, as a person. Right? So even in Dwaparayuga, that's where the experience is, I am the doer. I can make things happen. So from life happens to me theme in Kali Yuga, as we start getting more conscious, we see that in Dwaparayuga, even as a person, conscious creators believe that I can make things happen. Life happens for me. Kind of that, heading towards that. life happens for me, but the me is still the person. So we are still functioning as a person that has its unique flavor as the doer. And that's why effort, still there is effort at this thing, because it's still the person. The identity that is lived determines the rules or the dynamics that is played in that playground. Everything is by the identity we hold that generates that experience. So as a person, whatever our idea of that which I am as a person in the body, the conditions I hold, what is possible for me, what is not possible for me, I live as a belief, a concept. And what is this? As long as there is a belief and a concept, it is imbued with time and space of possibilities. This can happen, this is not possible for me. Even if this is possible, it's going to take me such a long time to do this. It adds time because its experience is outside itself. It is smaller, so it likes to gain. This mind, and we'll go into the Dwaparayuga video, but there are a couple of flavors of this. One of this is that's why this flavor of this time, space, and mind, all the same thing, experience, we live linearly, one after the other. That which we are is non-linear. It doesn't understand that. That is why it calls itself as a process. Even at the level, I'm a process, because that's its experience, living as a person. One after the other. It has a beginning, it has an end. Right? I begin something, I end. That's how I grow from being a child. Because it's identified with the body. So I was born and I'm going to die. Even its lived experience of attaining from outside in. That's the second flavor. It lives as a concept. It sees everything as stationary. These are all the flavors of this. One of the key things, this or that. As the self, the personal body identity separate self gets concretized, so does the world. So it's looking at that because it lives a masculine, dominant, energetic experience. That means there are things that are hardened, and that means there is one world that is being shared by many. It doesn't understand the concept that it experiences, creates, lives its own world. So it lives this or that. It's always dualistic, dancing between polarities. That's its conditioning. If this is right, then that has to be wrong. If this is good, that has to be bad. It does not hold the paradox because it's living as the relative experience only. So everything is a reflection of that initial Shiva, pure consciousness becoming the mind itself. Everything reflects. We're on the mirror. The mind is the mirror. So it's this or it cannot hold both, this and that. We are awakening to Treta Yuga. That's what it is. Treta Yuga, waking up as consciousness, seeing that the dance of the duality happens within me, holding the two. But I am not this or that. I'm above that. That happens in me. That's my play. This is the experience. It sees itself as the cause. Right? I do the hard work, I strategize, I plan. I am the cause for what happens. Living as that, naturally, we lead as that, as the intellect. Without realizing that our true nature as consciousness is also the unknown that we call the unconscious. In fact, that is more than the conscious mind, the known mind that we move as. So that's why we live that unfragmented, a fragmented experience. And that's why as the known mind, we can sense that eventually, no matter what, innately we feel in that identity that we're not standing on stable ground. And that's why our feeling and experiencing of power, Shakti means power. Right? Shakti is Shiva's power, Shiva's ability. So in this experience, fragmented as the person, we always find our power, the experience of it is outside, and by gaining knowledge, we feel empowered. We are adding to ourselves. The more we add to ourselves from the outer in, the more stability and security we tend to find for ourselves. Simply an illusion. This state of mind does not realize that I am the power. It's my focus, my awareness that births worlds. Without awareness, nothing exists. This is the core. The way that I'm aware, the way that I relate is what I experience. This nuance is lost to it. It sees situations, people, circumstances outside of it. Waking up as true self, right? That's the seeker's journey. It's awakening, waking up to its true self. It sees, I am not my body is in me. I am that which creates this play of time and space. What is in my awareness? That's why self-realization and enlightenment, the light is not the light of the two eyes that are seeing. It's the light of awareness. What is in my awareness is me. All that is aware, that I'm aware of as the world, the body, the way that I relate is all me. That is the shift. This paradigm shift is radical self-responsibility. It's standing at a higher space, seeing the whole thing. It's a paradigm shift, stepping out of time and space. So as the Dwaparayuga, we find outside in power. Here we awaken. Because as the Dwaparayuga mind, right, the experience of power is from outside in. And eventually that's why no matter what, how many ever things we fulfill ourselves, complete ourselves from outside in whatever way, ultimately never fulfills us. Because that which we are is unlimited and we are constantly evolving. And that does not negate or wrong this experience. That is simply the experience of a Dwaparayuga mind, duality. That is why this, as the seeker, the key part about the seeker's nature, that's why, is that it looks outside for the answers. It seeks outside for that which it already is. As a seeking mind, which is a Dwaparayuga mind, which is a habit, as a concept, we are living as if there are things outside of us that will fulfill us. So it tries to attain. As the known mind, five sensory mind that is looking outwards, where else will we go? That's why all of this, just to see that as a mechanism, it's simply a happening, an appearance of a happening, right, at the level of mind. But it's all simply happening. Nature flows, and every happening, whatever it is in the moment, always its trajectory towards wherever it may be, towards that which it is, the ocean that which it is, every river, wherever, whatever path it lives, flowing towards its own ocean. This is the seeking mind. So even in the beginning, right, we find ourselves the experience of finding it from outside, fulfilling ourselves from outside, eventually waking up to seeing that nothing from outside can really fulfill us. Right, we have that sense, and then from that, we awaken to questioning what is life. What is this? When we find ourselves at that stage, we're looking in the right direction. That's why all the seers, everything, all pointing, know thyself. That's the direct path. See the nature of the mind and everything gets unraveled. This is, one may say, one path, as in the Vedantic path, to come within. The other path is also to go outwards, because it's one consciousness. We can never get lost. So that's why, to follow our own resonance, however this leads, the world is reflecting back to us. That is another way to see. Right? Life is relating. It helps, it supports, it's ever serving. Even that it triggers helps us in waking up. Going out into experience as well, when we are truly in flow, like they say, completely as the five senses, the I thinking mind dissolves, right? The me is not there. And as that complete sensory experience, being one with experience, is also completely being free of this idea, of this living. That's another way. With awareness, when we move into experience, that's another way to awaken. So there is an ebb and flow to this. Coming into Dwaparayuga state of mind as we awaken, there was this momentum, this energy, this inspiration to experience. The mind is vibrating that way. It's woken up. It's like now a new way of relating with that which we are. New way, so new perspective. We have evolved. We have awakened. And through that we've created this, all this, the civilized world, right? All of that. And then steeped in that, experiencing all of that. When we are done with that, this is not something that the personal mind decides. It's a natural arising and arriving of it, right? Whenever we are in our experience, when we are flowing and enjoying, there is no questions, there are no doubts, there are no struggles. The seeking mind arises only when we feel that limitation. That naturally is a happening. And in that is the process that we start waking up. And we are right now, especially when we see it in our collective world as well, there's no difference. Right? The collective world is a peaking of our own. It's one and the same. You can see that we have arrived at a phase where we are all waking up. We are moving into this and more. We're moving. We're at this phase. We are rising. So this is a natural ebb and flow. As long as we identify ourselves as the seeker, see, every time the question or the identity itself points to the state of mind. When we identify as ourselves as a seeker, that itself says we are identified as a person, as a concept. Third density. As long as we are identified as a person that is looking and seeking, that's why they say a seeker will never be a finder. Because we are holding on to the identity that this is what I am. That doesn't allow us to see beyond that. And that is why the invitation for the seeking mind is to surrender. And that's why so many words. Because in its insistence to understand, even as a story, as a concept, this somewhere develops faith. To see the nature of reality, it develops faith, it relaxes, it lets go. The key to this is truly that. Why will the seeking mind, why will the seeker ever accept its own disillusion? Especially if it has a momentum and a habit. It's a habit as a concept, as this thought we've been living, right, in the masculine way, especially in our heads, as if the thought is inside. That's why thought is masculine, feeling feminine, being awareness, our true self state. I've made few more videos before this where I share about that. Thought is masculine. So that's why when we are intellectually figuring this out as a seeker, which is the thought itself, life meets us right where we are. As thought, these words, philosophies, books are needed. An invitation, always that's where does life happen? This thought lives as a past and a future. It lives in time. It doesn't live present. It doesn't know. Because it's not reality, right? That which we are here. The minute I have to think or say something, I've moved into thought. That's a different dimension. We are so used to being one with that thought, with that idea. That's why if everything we were to drop, that is the state of being, the doorway. That's why thought will only, it's an afterthought, always. It's an afterthought that lives, that's why it is the past. And it projects the future from what? From its own understanding, interpretation. That's the game. Conscious, we can play with that. Unconscious, identified with that, we limit ourselves to that. We live as a past. We meet everybody never as presence. We see everybody from the lens that we are. So that's a play, that's the flavor. As reality simply is every arising moment. And if you have to define it through thought in that sense, we still say it flows, it's a happening. That's why the invitation from thought come into the body. The body is always in the now. It has imprints and conditions that is from the separate self, its ideas. But as more and more we get in touch with our body, feminine, self-feeling, that dimension opens up from here that the intellect lives, right? It's here, body opens up, giving us a possibility to have a glimpse into that which we already are. That's why awakening does not happen in time, it's timeless. Because it's what we already are, but we are so identified with the thought. That is why the invitation to ask, why am I thinking? To not pick the thinking mind unless there's a practical use for it. Otherwise it becomes a habit that has a momentum. And that's why we say, oh my God, there I am again thinking. We've lived as that habit for a long time. And that conditioning, the coloring of that, is all an interpretation, that thinking is of the world that we adopted from our environment that we grew up in. And naturally, seeing that as a reflection in our world, we naturally say, of course the world works this way. But there is more. So this is coming into the true self. Coming into this, we wake up to the grace that which we are, awareness. True self is timeless. This aspect of us that is aware, even when experiencing the body is happening, then this is the paradox. I am is as the nature of the one mind, timeless. Awareness, simply isness. And the paradox of the relative experience of as if being in time process. This is the paradox. Primary identity, that is us, to stand as the I am. So this is the most exciting thing for the seeker. As long as the seeker is identified as a thought, it can never be the finder, because it's living as the thought. It continues exploring as the seeker, as the concept. Where is it? Where is it? While all along, it is already aware. It is already the light, without which the experience is not possible. This is the one being experiencing itself as a person, as a seeker, uniquely. So coming back from the seeking phase, right? The exciting part is to know that which I am, when we come into our body in the feminine says, that which I am already is. So as the seeking mind, when we wake up to see that what I am sensing in the depths that I think is outside of me, that as the doer I think I need to do, when I deepen into become whole, right? That's the experience of becoming integrated, becoming whole, without fragmenting ourselves. What we sense, our deepest desires, intentions, dreams, that aspect of us, if it is, it's already manifested. It's not the personal trying to manifest, do anything. It's already, if we stand in that I already am, my desire, it comes into fruition, into the world of matter as well. Because that's the flow. But identified only as this masculine energetic mind experience, as the doer, we struggle. When we sense a desire, we start struggling, saying, how do I do? What do I manifest? Then we have all these processes that actually becomes obstacles, because whatever this doer does is simply a reflection of its own condition, the time and space that it believes. So surrender, letting go, allowing life, moving as that innate intelligence, subjective. When, and this can only be lived, right? These are simply pointers. When we surrender, the I dissolves, the true self is. It deepens into, we can sense there's an innate intelligence uniquely moving, unfolding as a living purpose. We don't need to know that purpose as a concept, unfolding as a purpose. This is the experience. So for the seeking mind, this is the exciting. That if you are seeking, that means you're already sensing that which you are more than that. That is not outside to take a stand for your deepest desire. That is first and foremost, as we take a stand for what we are sensing openly, at whatever level, standing as our highest possibility, not as a concretized insistence, right? Not as that, just loose, but taking our stand. This is what I sense, without the mind insisting I need to see proof outside, right? That's how the five sensory mind, unless I see it, unless I touch it, feel it, it's not true for me. Unless I see it, I won't believe it. It's actually exactly the other way around. Why? Because the mind is the opposite of that which we are, consciousness. It's the opposite. The mind says, I need to see it. It's the opposite. That which I sense already is. And in surrender, as we open up to that, naturally everything unfolds effortlessly. This is the invitation. So that's why what we seek is what we already are. What we seek is actually seeking us. It's experiencing seeking, the one being through us. This is the exciting phase, as you can imagine. So we've already arrived into Treta Yuga. It is not just the ripening and this thing. When we become whole and we sense this, we've already arrived. And in taking that stand, in surrendering, in that disillusion, the obstacle itself, the problem, right? The state of mind that is vibrating and seeing the problem cannot find the solution. That's a different state of mind. So as that dissolves, the one that is seeing the problem, naturally the solution is what we are. We are the answer. That's why as a seeker, exactly like how pure consciousness, we cannot speak. We are that, but we cannot speak about the truth directly. We are that. There is no truth outside of us. There is no answer outside of us. There is no path outside of us. We are the path. as we can see this, I wanted to share a little bit about this ebb and flow of consciousness. And we can see this in different perspectives on different topics as well, because it's just looking through another window, another topic, but we're all looking at the same thing, consciousness. That's all there is. So this ebb and flow that we can see in astrology. In an astrology, as we know, a planet, and these are simply words, right, to put that as, planet has an energy, it comes into a particular sign. That sign holds a certain energy, and when we know that that planet comes into that sign, there are energetically things happening. Of course, I'm just sharing at the top level, right? We know that there are so many nuanced dynamics in this with the energy of the one that is relating to this, at the time that we are born. That is why the astrologers could see this, that the energy that is coming in, at how the planets and the constellations, there's much more of this in the Vedic astrology that is relating, that they could give us kind of like a theme that this stream of energy will live. Right? So this is, it's really in depth in that sense, but for this explanation in that sense, that whenever a planet comes in, right now Jupiter coming into Taurus, right, so there's this unique relating, and each of whatever moon sign or sun sign we're going to experience the dynamics of this energy within us. There is no inside outside, it's one and the same. Within, without is the same, right? Self, world, same. We are cosmic being. So when this planet comes in, when it comes into a sign, these are called as degrees. We call them as critical degrees. When a planet is at the 0 degree entering into a new sign, it's a state of energy ready to begin to relate. When it comes into the first degree, this is a critical degree. Why? Because it's the first relating with a newer energy. And these energies, when they come together, and each person per se, right? Consciousness that is conscious and unconscious. Depending on how unconscious and conscious it is, relates to these energies and experiences it uniquely. This is the play of Shakti. She's like a spiral, right? So that's why we say we arrive to the same thing, but in a new way. Right? It's like we're stepping into the river. We never step into the same river that is flowing. Neither is the river the same, neither the perceived eye is the same. It's exactly like that. So that's why all these cycles that we move through in astrology, even though it looks like the cycles within cycles within cycles, it's the same. We arrive to the same thing. Again, but what is the difference? The only difference is that which we are, our state of being, our level of awareness. That's the core. That's why the essential, everything, even when we find ourselves as the mind's awareness at the personal level, we are identified in that moment. That's all we can be. But at that level, to be aware. And that's why just to be that which we already are, awareness. That's always the invitation. So as this planet comes into this sign, there's this momentum. It starts relating these energies. And then it plays, right? It's a steeping of these energies coming together. There's a relating that is happening. It's the same as we come into Dwaparayuga. Excited, we jump in at the first degree. And then there is all this relating happening in the middle, steeping of it. We are flowing. There is no questioning at that time. We are enjoying it. Right? Because it's a new experience. It's beautiful. That is why the past that we have lived has served, right? And then comes the next phase. This, after steeping in a sign, as this planet leaves the sign, we call that as the anorectic degree, or which is also called as the fated degree. It's literally like that, right? Because when it leaves, That is what I see as the seeking phase. That's the angst that we feel, because there's a peaking and the ripening. We are done with that relating. We are done with it. And then naturally we rise out of it. So when at this 29th degree, when the planet is leaving the sign in astrology, especially some of these big archetypal kind of, planets that are leaving, we sense that there's going to be a change. This is the time actually, if you're aware the level of how conscious we are, it's a time of harvesting, to actually see from this relating. It's only because of this relating that things have come to the surface. It's like a churning, right? Samudra manthan. From that arises everything. That which we can see, that doesn't serve, right? It's a dance of conscious and unconscious. So the relating, naturally, that we're going to see that there are parts that haven't served, and then there are parts that have served. That is what we are. Nothing is outside of us. And because of that, that's why what has been can never be really rejected, blamed, denied. Right? Whatever has happened, everything has served. That's why the powerful question to stand, even if conceptually, how is this too serving? When we stand as that, we never negate any part of our lives, because negating and rejecting anything at the core level is negating and rejecting that which we are. And holding the paradox, of course, at that time, that it's relevant to see what has not served. But it's done in a more expansive way, not in an unconscious way that pains us. That the minute that happens, that is a red flag. That we are wronging something, which is I'm going to share about that, which is a very, very distinct theme and conditioning of the Dwaparayuga, wronging everything. And that's why it lives as if fighting everything, resisting. And what we resist, we know, persists. We wrong our world, ourself, same thing. Flavors of the same thing. So as we step out of this, that depending on how conscious we are, we can harvest. That's the exciting. Now I know better. This is what is serving. This is what I am. So everything that has been, we bless it. The triggers, we bless. That has supported us, we bless. It's equanimous. Standing as our primary identity, that is what it means. To be aware. Equanimous. There's no difference. We know the value of that. Then naturally we move into the next sunset, right? That's the flow in astrology as well. That is why it's called the fated. Feels like a fate in that sense. The way that, all words, right? It's all how we have imbued meaning with it. If we are conscious, we will see that fate is not outside of us in that sense. We are creating our destiny at the soul level, at the awareness level that is being experienced. So we come out of that. Cycles within cycles within cycles, right? So if you look at the solar cycle, whether we look at our birth year or whether we look at our every year, right, that we complete, it's the same. When the solar cycle starts, what's the first sign? Aries. What is the Aries energy? Like a newborn, new birthed energy. Daring, inspired, ready to jump in, play, explore, go-getter, dynamic energy. Exactly. Every time a new cycle starts, that's why during New Year, whether we follow the Gregorian calendar or otherwise, that's the time frame, right, in the beginning months that we sense. That is a genuine energy's momentum is that. That's the flow at the relative level. We feel that. We set resolutions, we can see an expansive thing. This is the cycle, the beginning. Then we steep into it. Every sign is a deepening into it, relating. So every energy, the energy that the personal carries, right? And I want to name something. This is not a single energy, right? At every level, the energy that we are, part of it is what we call as tamas. Parts of it that's unconscious at the Kali Yuga. Part of it, rajas, that is the Dwaparayuga, which is creative energy. We are aware, we know what we're doing, we're creating. Part of it, part of us, that energy is sattva, deep, all of us, the deep inner knowing, intuition, wisdom. Now at every moment, that is why, every moment, which aspect, dynamic, which energy is more, that is the predominant way we experience ourselves, and that what we are, we experience, and that's how we relate with our world. That is the world that we live. If we are in our most aware, self-conscious self, even that we might have some little unconscious experiences in the middle, whatever our main experience is of awareness, then we move as that. And that's how we relate with our world. And that's the face of the world we see. That is why when we say that if we want to describe it that way, that this world is a dynamic amalgam of different states of consciousness. Each perceived, subjective, aware self-person, whatever is, everything is experiencing. We are all at different, this thing, innately equanimous, we are consciousness. We are all experiencing ourselves and our worlds at different states of consciousness. Simply experiencing our own ebb and flow. Such is nature. So wherever we find ourselves, the more aware we are, we can then relate with the world with that awareness. With another. That's why coming into present, because in the end, that's why the invitation come into the now. Because life happens only in the now. Everything else is at the level of thought. This is where I am, this is where I move. So the invitation now, become present. Beyond time, without thinking thought. Then in that awareness, intuition never happens in time. Even surrender is always now in this, and we unfold as that. This is at the level of astrology. Exactly the same as we finish the solar cycle as well. At the level of that Capricorn, as we are closing it. Capricorn is the last earth sign. Grounded. It brings up everything within us as the past. What is our grounded lived experience? What have we been living as? What is our identity? If we really look at, Pluto being in Capricorn, that was our experience, right? Pluto again, energy of death, rebirth, two sides of the same coin. So coming into that Capricorn energy, we were asked as Pluto came into Capricorn, what is it that I'm living? That's the experience of the pandemic, the COVID, that we all went through. Waking up, is it serving the identity that we are living as? What do we mean by living sovereign? What does it mean? Where and to whom have we given away our authority? How are we defining all of that? Very grounded. We were all asked to look into that. How have we defined our world? What is our perception? What do we choose? All of that. And then coming from there into Aquarius, water bearer. Last air element. Air is mind, mental. So it's almost like whatever was harvested, whatever we saw in Capricorn, mind, we started looking at the nature of mind. It started coming into what do we do? How do we proceed from here? Aquarius is the energy, that's why, of rebelliousness, stepping out of comfort, what has been lived. The new, right? Not that way, it's ruled by Uranus. Very, very, that's why leading edge. Not staying in what is common, an uncommon way. So looking at that. And then of course, if you're conscious, it's the Aquarian energies. And we all relate, no matter what moon and sun sign we are, when that Aquarian energy is alive within us, that's related, it's one and the same. Right? So it's like the humanitarian energy, altruistic. We think of the collective, we think of our community. We think larger than that which we are. And as the water bearer, right, we bring in fresh waters. So we are now, it's It's that beautiful experience of the mandala. If you see in Buddhism, you take this time to do a beautiful, intricate mandala, right? This is the flowing and happening, the designing of life. And then with one swoop, it's done, the experience is done. It's exactly that, the equation. The water bearer comes, puts fresh water. Clean slate, let's begin again. Such is the play. It's not the water bearer doing that. We are the waters. And that's the invitation. So cycles within cycles, right? So the larger cycle, cosmic cycle, we are deepening into age of Aquarius. As age of Aquarius that we are deepening into, that's what we are being called. We are awakening, becoming fluid. One may say as ice, concrete concept that we have lived as, and hardened ideas. That's the game of our, this is what is secure. I live as an idea. This is my known world. We are being invited to become fluid, true self. Water takes shape in every moment. I am multifaceted, not just one face. Every moment, a reflection to what is needed, multifaceted. The consciousness stream that I am is multidimensional. Everything happening at so many different layers, cycles within cycles within cycles. That is the deepening of that. And the theme of Age of Aquarius, that's why I move as intuition. I am intuition. Intuition is always in the now. Awareness, viveka, discernment. That's the invitation. Instead of seeking mind, we are awakening into that. From Age of Aquarius, moving into Age of Pisces. Not the age. We've done with that's the other way around that we're going. Age of Pisces is done. Aquarius now, from this sign of Aquarius in the solar cycle, we are moving into Pisces. Pisces, last water sign. So if we allow these concepts to go without clinging to anything, this disillusion, we become like water. Clarity, fluid. The body then, a luminous mind, an open, clear, transparent, like water, translucent mind, allows for the happening of a luminous body, and then the body becomes the divine tool to move. Pisces, water sign, when it is conscious, vibrates as spirituality, imagination, inspiration. Fluid, we can sense that, subtleties. Again, it's all in the end dependent on where the mind is vibrating, what level. If it is deeply unconscious, if it's still holding on, living that experience, then Pisces water can feel like it's just scattered all over. We feel like we're here and there and there and there. We really cannot find ourselves. We cannot hold ourselves a little bit. It's the paradox of both. And then we feel anxious, we feel low, like depression. That also is the Pisces energy. That's how it might affect us. So it's both that we look at. And as we move out of that energy, if you're conscious, then begins the new year again and the new cycle again. Through imagination, dreaming, all of that, holding ourselves in the highest possibility, largest, most open context. We move more consciously, evolution, we begin our new cycle. So this is the astrology, right? Like it's the same thing. Coming into every sign, steeping into it, critical degree, moving out of that, harvesting, stepping out, ebb and flow at every level. That is how nature is, and we are nature. At the level of mind, Shakti is nature. And this is the core flow. If we look at the Ayurvedic perspective, Ayurveda is all about that. We know Dinacharya, daily routine, Ritucharya, seasonal routine. These written concepts like Vedas and all of this is only concepts are for the mind that is living as a concept, as thought. And even its change is very slow, whatever it does, because it's always concretizing, reaffirming its own personal identity while thinking. That is why the invitation to drop the thinking mind, because that thinking mind, as in allow it to be and just be aware. That allows us to loosen. So in Ayurveda, this nature, those concepts, Dinacharya, Ritucharya, were given by the ancients, that this knowledge was given at every level, because these concepts are needed for the conceptual mind. It's dancing at a denser frequency. But when we move as the true self, we are nature. We don't need concepts. Coming into the presence, opening ourselves, becoming holistic, we move as nature. As soon as there is spring, flowers, summer, fruits, autumn, leaves from tree. This is a unique experience and expression of nature. We are aligned with nature. We know that we deeply sense and move. When we come into the body, we know that every moment, do we need to eat? Do we need rest? We don't need concepts such as so many hours of rest is needed, this is needed. We can sense that. There is no reason for any outer authority in that sense to guide us. The life that which we are is living in every moment beautifully. That's why balance cannot be found as a concept. Tell me what it is and I'll live a balanced life. I am dynamic balance every moment. So that's why we don't need to know in Ekadashi we need to fast. We don't need to have these rules with the moon cycle. We feel it within us. Full moon, we sense the energy of the full moon as the water rises. We are mostly water. What is within us rises. If we are vibrating at the unconscious level with the angst, that becomes more obvious. If we are aware of this, even conceptually, then we can hold this in the right light. All these words, all these philosophies, all that are offered everywhere, just in the service of that. Even knowing it conceptually is the doorway for the seeking mind. So this is it, that we move, right, as the ebb and flow. In Ayurveda also, there is this thing called as the doshas. So three doshas like Vata, Pitta, Kapha. It's the way that we say Tamas, Rajas and Sattva. Right? Another perspective of that. Vata is where it's the energy of that is fluid, more quick moving, fast, flighty. And then Pitta is fiery, passionate. Kapha is more grounded, steady. Now if we are conscious or unconscious, we experience this. So each body in Ayurveda, it says, because it senses at the level of energy, but at the level of manifested as matter, as body, it says this is your prakriti. That's what they say. This is your nature. So there is an innate nature that the body is born with. Again, it's dynamic. But innate nature will be either we are Vata, Pitta. So if we are Vata and Pitta, if you're conscious, it's like we are quick thinking, we are fast, and at the same time Pitta is there. We're fiery, passionate. This kind of energy that comes in is a creator energy. See, the purpose is interwoven in the way that our nature is. We don't need to know it as a concept because it's dynamic. It may change in that sense. But the core Prakriti is like a theme that stays. Pitta. Now, in case it's unconscious and we don't live according to our nature, that's where Vikriti happens. Prakriti becomes imbalanced. We are constantly at unease. And then that is why, because this personal mind thought, if we look at it, its nature, what is it? It arises as resistance to life, because life is already flowing. But this thought as an I, conditioned by the world, it arises as a resistance to life, the way that it is flowing. It's resisting its nature, that's why it's experienced as unease. If we are not aware, this unease manifests as disease. Ayurveda recognizes that. And so does the other ancient, all these lineages, like which deal with health, Chinese medicine, all of those. They talk about the same thing, the way chi, prana flows. An Ayurvedic practitioner can just sense your nadi pulse. You don't have to even utter a word. A good, aware practitioner will just do this, who has learned, and will tell you, stressed, huh? I see. Digestion is not okay. Not sleeping enough. All these nuances, they look at that, and through diet and through a lifestyle, dinacharya, ritucharya, so seasonal routine, bring it back into balance. But when we live as awareness, as true self, at that level, as long as we are moving without this thinking mind, sensing into it, coming into our wholeness, we naturally move. So we move as the doshas. Right? So whenever the doshas are imbalanced, if you look at it, even at the dosha level and at the seasonal flow level, the way that we see, this energy, as we know, form doesn't have hard edges. Right? We know that energy is flowing. That part of the stream, we are sometimes more tamas, little bit more rajas, all of that, right? Kali Yuga, Dwapara, all those states. Similarly, whenever a season comes, that flavor of that season or that dosha gets accumulated. And that is the dynamics that we play with. That particular dosha, that particular energy is more dominant. It gets accumulated in that season. And that's what we call as chaya. The next phase is the over-accumulation, which is the prakopa. Living this bubbling up of this energy, same thing, we become full of it, we become overfull of it. It's the same. Coming into Dwaparayuga, into this material experience, we collect, we gain, we collect till we become overfull, we become over-accumulated. That is the experience of the seeker. What was before an amazing play that I enjoyed does not call to me anymore. And that then becomes over-accumulation. And naturally, if there is no identity holding on from prakopa, the next level is auto-pacification, prashamna. Nature ebbs, rises up, again flows. Nothing really needs to be done. It's only the doer that comes in as resistance, trying to fix and change and transform. That's why transformation happens already at the level of consciousness. That is why the answer for everything for our seeker, surrender, let go, accept, which this doing mind does not see. It's like, if I don't do, it's identified with its hard work and its efforting. It's like, if I don't do, how will it happen? It's exactly the opposite. In its surrender, we see that nature, that is the one intelligence, is the cause that is doing everything. All this other change that we think that we do doesn't do anything. It's just an after. It's an afterthought. This is the flow. From spring, certain energy, those doshas rise up from spring, naturally going into summer. Right, in summer we see as the body gets this thing, and we see the same cycle in, that's why Dakshinayana and Uttarayana also. The peaking, the overflowing of that, then comes solstice, then we are called to go inwards. We become overfull by the external, right, that we step out, external, living when the sun is up, and then coming back inwards. From August onwards, we start coming back inwards. That's when our Navratri is celebrated. The Chaitra is in spring. That is actually when we step out. Spring manifests. There's an energy to go out, manifest. Life is lived in the masculine world. Come August, Sharad Navratri, we celebrate the 9 nights of divine feminine, right? These two. Critical shifts, that's why. We fast, we go inwards. We steep in the winter months. We are nature. So that we prepare. So come, the cycle comes, the next, this thing as spring, we rise again. It's the same, even daytime is the same, right? As we rise up, there's an energy to begin the day. The day peaks. After that, the sun comes down, we rest. Coming back inwards. Cycles within cycles. summer, it's bountiful life. We look outside, fruiting, all of that, the bounty of life effortless. After that, in winter, naturally, in autumn, the leaves let go. It's an nature is ever auto-correcting itself. And to see this, all of these words, simply the invitation for the seeker to drop its identity as the thought that it is the seeker. And this can only be lived, the words can only point. But when we do it, when we live it, when we let go of the thinking mind, coming into faith, trusting, instead of grasping with the thinking thought that creates more angst, nature starts flowing. Which path the energy that we are moves as, we eventually arrive to the doorstep of surrender. In the dissolution of this psychological idea as a person that is resistance and that constricts and grasps and holds on. And that's why in letting go, in accepting, that is released, in allowing, that releases, and automatically in that what is revealed is that which we are, the true self. That is the invitation. I've shared quite a few practices on this. What can be helped me to begin with, right, is just to see even the nature of the thought that we are identified, that keeps narrating as if it's our thought in our head, that we are identified as that I am thinking this, and what is thought, that is simply a condition of the world, is true. So given a practice where you can give phone alarms, and even to just slightly begin with and see, I find myself already thinking. That which we think is what we experience ourselves and the world as, because this thought creates a certain vibration. Everything is energy, and that vibration is what determines what is seen. So dropping the thought, coming back to awareness as us. That's one exploration. The other one that I had shared was the Chinnamasta practice, which is, because again, as I mentioned, that's why it's very helpful to see the nature of the mind as the sensing, as an energetic thing. As soon as the head is cut off, energetically speaking, Chinnamasta, the headless practice, then awareness drops to the bottom. This is the feminine space, right? If you really see all the masculine senses, except for touch, which is the most feminine of them all. That's why we love a hug. It brings us back into our body. Massages, practices such as this, all the other senses take us outwards, masculine, making the world and making the distance and separation to be more real. And that's what we live. So when we energetically kind of switch off this, that's when we stop thinking. Our attention then is in the body, at the lower sense in the body. And that really helps us come into our own self. Because there is an energetic momentum to all of this, because we've lived as a habit. So this energy is a habit. It's not going to immediately switch off. So even when we awaken, as awareness, that's what it's called, as the deepening into awakening, because having even a glimpse of seeing that which we are as pure awareness, and that we are not the body and this thought that I was thinking I was. The body still holds this energetic momentum. So there's a forgetfulness and we move as that momentum. So that's why the key, as much as possible, is to become self-aware. So this aware aspect, as much as we go back, it's almost like we're going back. We become aware and stay as this awareness. This starts. This becomes more. This holds more power in that sense. And then we see everything. So even when things in the world, the body, our patterns in the body, the imprints of the thinking mind that come up, as emotions and everything, if we've practiced, like as we have stayed in awareness that helps us. All that is needed, really, that's why, is to be aware. That's why sharing, like living as a habit, just the seeing of the habit with clarity, with absolute awareness, is to see that we overcome. There's no doing needed after seeing a habit that I need to overcome it. That narrative is of the personal doer. Seeing of a habit itself is the disillusion of the habit. It doesn't serve me, it's done. Right? Similarly, the sensing of a desire itself is to know that it's manifested, without which we can't even sense it. It's only in the identity that it needs to manifest, that insistence that holds us apart from that which has already manifested. That's why we can sense it. It already has happened. Similarly, the more aware that we become, even as this clearing happens in the body, whatever, that awareness allows us to see it with clarity, and just the seeing of it is the disillusion of it. So we stay as aware as possible. So that's the invitation. And to keep this as simple as possible, right? Because the person takes on everything as a burden, makes it very heavy. Not to do that. We already have lives that we're leading with so many commitments. Even a little bit, wherever we can, breaks the momentum and really creates changes at the subtle level. If we again start as the mind, which is its nature, to doubt it, it's not showing up, I still am doing something, all of that. That's why this phase requires, at the level of the thinking mind, a lot of courage. At the relative level, we say compassion. It needs that, because there is a momentum to this. But the more, even that few moments that we take a break, example, standing at the red light, we're at the red light. Notice how we automatically start going into our thinking mind. That's a habit that we have lived in Dwaparayuga. So we tend to think about it, we're planning already ahead. Bring it back, become present. And this seems so paradoxically as if we are doing nothing to the doing mind, right? The thought, the personal mind is a doer, it's a doing. It only values that. It doesn't value at all. It doesn't see the value of the power of our presence itself. That is the power that manifests. It doesn't see that. It doesn't see the value of stillness, silence. That's why it doesn't see many times the power of prayers, that state of being. It only plays at the surface gross level. Are you doing? Then that is going to matter. That's what it assumes and judges and goes by. Right? So even little bit of this presence has big makes big changes. So that's why to just be present whenever we are. We're in the grocery line till we get to the cashier. Instead of being in the mind, dropping our attention into the belly just here. And in the surrender video, I'll share a few more practices. And that's why the key, even in surrender, it can be really tricky. And that's because even cognitively, like knowing about surrender, and even that it makes complete sense, sometimes we struggle to surrender. That's because there's an energetic aspect to it. We are energy, there's a momentum to it. There is a particular dynamics of the feminine and the masculine that happens even beyond what I shared about the five senses. The five senses are vibrating because the way the feminine and the masculine energy is dancing. So there's a mechanism, energetic mechanism that is happening. And when we see that with clarity, not just see energetically, that's why those practices, immediately we step into that with awareness, everything changes. This is where the practice of pranayam for me shifted. After doing years of pranayam the regular way, this way of doing pranayam absolutely is transformational. That's why it is not the quantity that matters in that sense, it's always the quality, right? It's the presence that we bring to any situation, to anything that transforms. It's the quality. Shifting even in pranayam, like prana is pranava, the name for Om. Consciousness manifesting as Om, as sound first. Pranava, prana aspect through the breath. When we come into this identityless space and then we do pranayam, there's nothing to do. The prana itself moves through, clearing at different levels, at the subtler mental level, at the physical level. Our bodies, right, the koshas, everything gets done. And that's why at the end of pranayam we see naturally we step into our deepest meditation. That's the path. That's why for me pranayam is the complete practice in that sense, while we are going through this awakening. So I'll share more in the Dwaparayuga, because knowing the nature of the Dwaparayuga mind as well offers us clarity, and then the seeing of it then makes it easy for us to be that which we are. Everything an invitation, not to change anything, just to be with what is, not to resist, accept, allow. That's the right word, allow. That's when we say love is the answer, not the conditional love. It's the unconditional love, which is allowing everything, that it's pure intelligence. If it is serving. We can't see that if we are resisting as a thought, trying to manipulate, change, experience. Just being. So be aware, that which we already are, coming into the now. So if we are a seeking mind, we find ourselves as a seeker. Celebrate. We've already arrived. It's like the feet, I see this image, it's like the feet are already there in the new awakened world. It's only the head that is in the past, right? So as we release that identity, we wake up to seeing that which I am, the new world, the new self, the new state of being already is. To living and celebrating